Good morning.
Morning.
It is Wednesday, August 18th, 2010. My name is Jim Mayola. I'm with the Community Media Center, and we're here at the Western Maryland Railway Museum, and it's my pleasure to be interviewing Gary Fisher. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
Okay. First of all, let's start with, I hate to ask this question, but how old are you, Gary?
I'll be 59.
59.
Right.
Well, you and I are the same age.
Okay.
So we were both born in 1951.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
Now, were you born in Carroll County?
I was born in Frederick, Frederick City. That was the Carroll County General or Carroll County Medical Center or whatever wasn't built yet.
Okay.
So it was either Baltimore or Frederick. So I was born in Frederick.
Okay. And when did you get to Carroll County? How long have you lived here?
Since I was a baby.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. My parents moved. My dad started working on the Western Maryland Railway in 1948 or 49.
Okay.
And I think that's when he moved to Westminster.
Oh, okay.
So I was just a baby when we moved here in Westminster.
So you grew up in a family where your source of support was Western Maryland Railway?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did your dad do on the railroad?
He was an operator, agent. There's been 5 generations work in the Western Maryland Railroad.
In your family?
In my family.
No kidding.
My brother Steve. He was the last one. He worked on the railroad, and then of course as soon as he got in, started working for the Western Maryland. That's when the government took it over and it became Chessie and CSX and everything like that.
Yeah.
So he's the 5th generation.
So your father, grandfather,
great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather. Right.
So that goes back to the steam days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
The great-great, after the Civil War, he supposedly was a foreman, a track foreman, and helped build the rails from Union Bridge on up the mountain to Blue Ridge Summit.
No kidding.
So
which still exists today.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And my great-grandfather, he shoveled coal or stoked wood in the old steam engines. And then my grandfather was an agent, and my dad was an agent.
Now, what does an agent do?
A person that would work in the office. He would be the person that would take train orders. Back in the passenger train days, he would sell the tickets.
Okay.
In fact, my father worked in this office.
Worked in the very office that we're sitting in now.
Right.
Okay, and that's his picture right behind you.
Right, in Emory Grove, which is outside of Reisterstown or Glendon.
Right.
Okay.
And train travel was a big business in that it was a big deal. I mean, it was kind of the center of all commerce in the communities, and passenger trains went all over the place. I understand that probably in your father's day, and certainly in your grandfather's day, in Westminster, train travel happened all the time. I mean, people could get on the train, on a passenger train, and just about go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Could go anywhere.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
They ride to Baltimore all the time.
Right.
Philadelphia, New York, all up and down the East Coast, and probably out to the Midwest.
Anywhere they wanted to go.
Yeah, anywhere they wanted to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some amazing days. And commerce, trainloads of goods and came in all the time.
Right.
I mean, they'd have 5 or 6 trains a day coming into Westminster, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it connected to farmers. Farmers would bring their milk and produce and stuff at the little station stops.
Right.
It was a way for them to get their things to market without them going to market. So it worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And now they use this line here, is used, I guess, on a daily basis or a couple of times a week anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand it runs, runs Stone down to Finksburg?
Right.
And
Stone from here at Lehigh and Union Bridge. And lumber to Thurmont. There's a prefab place up there that uses lumber.
So Gary, what was it like? Did you live in Westminster when you were a little boy? What was it like living in Westminster with a father who worked in the railroad? What kind of stories can you tell me?
Well, when I got old enough to remember being a person, I mean, we lived up on Green Street Hill.
Okay.
Which anybody from Westminster knows where that is.
Western Maryland College.
No. East Green Street,
Other
up
side.
on the other side.
Oh, okay, I know exactly.
Up above Maggie's.
Yes, up above Maggie's. All right.
And of course, it wasn't Maggie's then; it was Green Street Tavern.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we lived at, and before that, we lived over at North Colonial Avenue, which I remember horses at the riding club.
No kidding.
So there was actually horses and horse jumps.
Yeah.
You know, when it was a riding club, not a social club now. But
so the riding club really used to be a riding club.
Used to have real horses.
Wow.
Yep.
And you remember that?
Yep, as a kid. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. And but my dad would there for a while. He would play be vacation relief, and they would take him in different agencies, different stations. And this was one of them. Okay. I remember coming here in Union Bridge as a small child, you know, kid, and on the weekends he would bring my brother and I over to give my mother a break, and we'd sweep these floors and do whatever he was supposed to do, but we did it. And the funny story I like to tell here is I was always scared to death to go down the basement of this station because it was a dirt floor back then, and it was dark and spider webby, and and totally forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And then when I retired, I worked at East Alco Aluminum Company in Buckystown.
Okay.
And retired from there, and so I came back and volunteered here. And the first time they said go down in the basement and here and do something, as soon as I opened up the door, it's the same steps.
Yeah.
So I remember being scared.
And the same feeling.
Oh yeah, it came right back.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not a dirt floor anymore.
No. It's civilized down there now. But back then, I don't know if I had to go down and get coal or. I don't think this was a coal heat. No, it was a steam radiator heat in here. But some of the stations was the outhouse and the coal, potbelly stove, and had to go to the farmer's spring house to get water for the station. That was up in Porter's, up in Pennsylvania. But
so your dad's job was relief when somebody went on
at the
vacation.
beginning when I was real young, and then when I got older, he got more of a permanent job. I know he was at Emery Grove for years, and in the tower working switching the trains.
Right.
But then he held the job in Westminster at the freight station for years. Where there's a wood stove business there now. It was back behind Joe Hansen.
Sure, yeah.
He had that job for a long time. In fact, one of the memories I have is when brother and I were like 8 or 9 years old, we sold snowballs right beside Joe Hansen's, which was Murphy's Five and Dime then. It was the old dime store. And there was enough railroad, there was a strip of railroad property there that the freight station became our hub because of my dad worked there, and that's where our ice shaver was, and our flavors. I mean, we made our own flavors, but we sold snowballs there on Main Street.
Now this would have been the late 50s.
Early 60s? Well, yeah, that would be the turn, about the late 50s, early 60s.
Right. Okay.
51. I'm 8 or 9 years old, so it's at the end there.
Right.
And from that experience, I got to know everybody in Westminster. I mean, all the characters and the colorful characters, and because of just being on the corner and watching the traffic and people going by. So
that was an amazing time in Westminster, wasn't it?
Yeah.
An amazing time in downtown Westminster.
Yeah. I believe it was Hess. The Hess gas station was right there, where you would never think there was enough room.
Right.
Where Railroad Avenue comes out there, there was a little gas station in there in front of the freight station, and of course that's all going now. And Joe Hansen added on to the restaurant there, so that was the little strip of land that we had our stand on, and we had it on a little mobile hand cart that the compliments of the railroad, and we sold snowballs there. I don't know, 2 or 3 summers.
Wow. Now when your dad was doing the relief for people on the vacation, he would pick up the train in Westminster and just ride it down to the station?
No. He would drive to the different locations.
Okay, he'd drive to the locations, and then he'd be there for what, a week or so?
It all depends. I mean, if it was a sick relief or his coverage, or maybe he bid another job opening. You know, it was a seniority thing on the railroad, so he went wherever his seniority would take him.
Okay. Now, would he spend the night? Would he stay overnight, or would he come home every day?
He would come home.
Okay.
I would say normally, not to say that he wouldn't. My dad also played in Frock's Sunnybrook Farm, played in Gene Frock's band.
No kidding.
So he was definitely, he's a character too.
Sounds like it.
He played sax and clarinet.
Okay.
And among other things, but that's what he would out at Frock's. So I hung out at Frock's all the time too.
Now, what kind of music did they do?
A little jazz band, little dance band stuff. Played a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And knocked around different, the VFW, different clubs, VFW and stuff.
And how many members in the band?
I don't know, 6 or 7, 6 or 7 men.
Yeah.
Something, my job and my brother's job was help carry the instruments in,
Wow.
that kind of stuff.
So you got lots of experiences then. Yeah. Now let's go back to this spot right here.
All right.
When you would come here as 8 or 9 with your brother, and your dad was doing relief work, he'd be in this office working here.
Right here.
And he'd be taking orders for the train and selling tickets and whatever needed to be done.
Right.
What was it like in here during that time? I mean, this was a train depot, and passengers would come in and buy tickets?
When they did passenger service, that was in the like I say, I was born in 51, so the passenger service stopped at 56, 57, so I was 6 or 7 years old. I do remember passenger service because my mother would go to Thurmont, where her parents were, every Sunday. So we'd ride the train up every Sunday.
No kidding.
My dad had the car, my mother, we rode the train.
Wow.
But for here, after the passenger service, the railroad kind of closed. They closed half of this building off because they didn't need it. Yeah, so it was basically a freight station.
Okay.
And like I say, all your commerce came here, and especially in Westminster because they had the big yard there.
Sure.
Finch Services would bring their John Deere tractors in on the flat cars. There was the pig pen. They'd bring the hogs in, I guess, for Hans, meat packing.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't remember so much activity in Union Bridge, but Westminster was really busy because they had the facilities, so the big yard and stuff.
When you came here, when your dad was giving your mom some relief by taking you and your brother.
Yeah, right. He would give moms.
You'd have the job of sweeping the floors. And cleaning up and whatever needed to be done.
Or wash the windows, whatever needed to be done. He would,
So it was a little quieter here.
Yeah,
there wasn't near as much going on as was going on down in Westminster.
Yeah, the freight station. Yeah.
So let's talk about the freight station a little bit. When you say Finch's got their John Deere tractors in, they had livestock coming in.
Right.
What other kinds of things were happening in the?
Well, of course, I believe some lumber came in for the lumber yards in Westminster. That would so there was a lot of activity in the Westminster yard, which it's quiet now, but at one time it was busy. I mean, really busy.
It was the hub of commerce.
Probably
for the whole county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so livestock and tractors and different things would come in, lumber, and then it would be put on trucks and taken to the local places in the community.
Okay. Finch would come out and get the brand new tractors and get them running and put them on their trucks and take them out. Well, they're out at the airport now, but I'm trying to think where they were back then, but what they wasn't out there.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I have to think about that one, where they used to be. But
they took them to their store.
Yeah. And like I say, the pigs would go to Hans.
Now Hans has been there forever, hasn't he?
And and the other one was the Myers. what was it, W.F. Myers, I think it was. Of course, they've been closed up for years.
Right, now that was meatpacking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they'd take livestock on the hoof.
Right.
And they would do the butchering
Right.
and all of that there.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now there was other commerce in the county, and I'm sure that they depended on the railroad. There used to be shoe factories in
Right. Yeah.
in Westminster.
Yep.
And canneries.
Oh yeah, Shrivers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shrivers did a lot of business with the railroad. I mean, shipped their cans out and stuff like that. Yeah.
So a lot of commerce happening in the community, and a lot of industry in the community, right in Westminster.
Right. Or area. Yeah.
Yeah. What was Main Street like when you were a young man?
Well, like I say, the characters. I remember the town characters. There was Pete Storms. He was the unofficial mayor of Westminster, and all he did was walk up and down Main Street and tell you all about poor Aunt Mary Wilson's penny grab bag. Well, I always thought that he was making it up, but I saw a documentary on Westminster, and there was a Aunt Mary Wilson's penny grab bag for the kids. So he, you know, I was, and he was a bicycle genius. He could tune the spokes of a bicycle just by ear. He'd play it like a harp.
No kidding.
The spokes for the tension, and then of course there was the Percy, and he was supposedly a World War I soldier that was shell shocked or mustard gassed or something, and he wasn't right, but he walked up and down the streets, harmless, you know, but just the characters. A lot of little shops, little grocery stores, women's clothing, the drug stores.
All the drug stores had
the soda fountains. Oh
in
yeah,
them,
yeah, and the little nickel pinball machines in them on a couple of them.
Yeah.
And, I remember Harry's. With the Harry's was across the street, next to Penny's, which is Penny's is there, or is it there now still, or not the store, the building?
The building's there. Yeah.
Okay, I think. Yeah. But anyway, there was. I remember Harry's back in the Baltimore Colt days. They would practice up at Western Maryland College, and of course they would hang out at the Oz and Jen's, which was the pit, which is Stables now, at the other end of town. That was the Colt hangout.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see Johnny Unitas, that's where you went. You might see him there.
No kidding.
You know.
Wow. Now, no bypass. We had no 140 then. It was just Main Street coming up from Baltimore.
Right.
And what kind of traffic did we have?
Nothing like it is today, of course. But I do remember 140 coming up to, I think it was a dual lane up to Gorsuch Road, which is where I think McDonald's and Olive Garden is.
Right.
That was dual lane, and then it went to single lane.
Okay.
And I remember, this sounds funny, but I remember if you were traveling 140, the new highway, and you saw another car coming the opposite way, but on the other highway, I remember looking to see if you knew who they were.
No kidding.
You might know who they were. I mean, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't all the traffic. It was pretty local little town. You know, pretty much everybody knew everybody else.
Sure.
You know, it was kind of tight.
Now, let's see, Cocky's Tavern was going on then. Probably, was it Cocky's or was it the...
I don't. Way back when, it wasn't Cocky's Tavern. The Historical Society was there.
Right.
The Shellman House.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Cocky's, but I remember going into Cocky's Tavern. Of course, that was I was in high school then.
Right. Now, before it was Cocky's Tavern, it was a boarding house.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were a little boy, it was a boarding house, and then it became Cocky's Tavern.
And some of the school teachers boarded there.
Right.
The unmarried school teachers. I think Mike Eaton stayed there. And, and Francis Miller, I think. I believe. I'm not. You know.
Yeah. Now, where did you go to school?
Westminster. Went through went through all the schools in Westminster.
So elementary in Westminster, middle
First
school?
and second grade was at East End over where it's, what is it now? Westminster Inn, I think. That's where my first and second grade was.
Wow.
Third and fourth was out beside of the old high school where I think it's, it was called elementary school, but I'm trying to, might be middle school now. and then William Winchester, and then junior high up the other school next to it sits up there, and then to the old high school behind the city hall.
Okay, so you went to high school in the old high school then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Mike Eaton. Was Mike Eaton one of your teachers by any chance?
No, but he was there.
He was there,
Yeah. He was, yeah.
Okay. Movie theaters. I understand they used to have 2 movie theaters on Main Street.
Yeah, the State and Carroll Theater.
Did you ever go?
Yeah, I've been to both of them.
Yeah.
I do remember the segregation. I remember, it's funny, it was almost reverse segregation. The State Theater, I wanted to go up in the balcony.
Yeah.
I couldn't go up in the balcony because that's where the blacks went.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch a movie up on the balcony, but I couldn't get up there.
You weren't allowed.
No.
Isn't that sad?
So it was reversed.
Yeah.
I do remember that, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I just want to go up and watch the movie from up top.
Yeah.
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 And it was cheaper, wasn't it?
I guess. You
didn't know.
Yeah. The Drum and Bugle Corps took over the State Theater. Isn't that off on my mind? I can't remember.
Now, was that the Starlighters?
Starlighters.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
They kind of took over the State Theater after it ceased to be a theater. And of course the Carroll Theater and the Candy Box, the candy store across the street.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
Now the Carroll Theater is now the Arts Council.
Arts Council.
The candy store is that Ernie's?
Might be.
Yeah.
Might be.
Yeah. Times have changed, but
Yeah.
some things stay the same.
So we'd go over to the candy store and get our candy and bring it to Carroll Theater.
Now they had a snack bar in the theater, didn't they?
They had a candy counter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you snuck your candy in.
Well, sure.
Sure. It was cheaper.
Probably.
Do you remember there used to be a drive-in on Ridge Drive-In up where the new high school is now?
Yep.
Did you ever go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was called the Ridge.
Yeah.
Ridge Drive-In.
Yeah. And so we had 2 movie theaters and a drive-in theater right in Westminster.
Right.
So a thriving community.
Yeah.
I understand that on weekends, it used to be a big thing on Fridays and Saturdays to walk up and down Main Street, that a lot of people would come in from the community, from the farmers and all, would come in and do their shopping and their socializing on Main Street. Now, you were living right in the town.
Right.
So did you ever recall any of that? Did it get busy on the weekends?
Oh, yeah. People would come into town and socialize. The merchants would put a lot of their goods out on the sidewalks. They had the canvas canopies that would come out, and I mean, you know, so it was a hub.
Yeah.
Hubbub, you know.
Yeah. That almost sounds like the old pictures that you see of the cities where people would have their produce right out on the street.
Yeah.
And folks would walk along and buy things right on the street rather than coming into the stores.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, to hook them, to bring them in, you know. To entice them, and put the clothing stores, you know, they put the clothes on sale out, you know.
Sure.
My grandmother worked at Mather's, which I remember. I'm trying to think of the store when I was a little kid. They had there was only one cash register in the store, and they had the little wire baskets that ran across the ceiling.
No kidding.
So the salesperson would write your ticket up and give you the money, and they would put it in a little wire basket, and it would run on wheels on little wires, and it would go over to the central cash register, and they'd make change and then send it back.
No kidding.
Now I was little, but I remember that they'd pull a wire or a handle or something, and it would scoot. I think it was Mather's. I think it was.
Fascinating. Now that was like a department store.
A little, clothing store and house goods down in the basement.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
Fascinating. Let's talk about your dad again for just a minute. You said he was a musician.
All right.
And you said he played in a little jazz band.
He played in several, but he was definitely part of Frock's. Gene Frock's.
Yeah, Gene Frock's band. And that was like a dance band. So they went around the community doing dances.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, did you ever go to any of the dances?
I was probably I wouldn't say never, but not often. But if it was out at Frock's, there was a good possibility that I'd be, because I'd hang out in the kitchen. You know, I learned how to swim at Frocks Pool.
Did you? Yeah.
The Red Cross had a special bus, school bus, and they picked me up at the base of Green Street Hill where Maggie's is, and take you to Frocks to learn how to swim.
Okay, now where was Frocks, for those who don't know?
What's the name of that street? Oh, isn't that awful? You're gonna have to. I'd have to look. I can't remember.
But there were several community pools, weren't there?
I mean. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was Frocks, and then there was Meadowview, which was out towards Silver Run, I think.
Yeah.
I remember swimming there. Yeah. But that was about it for public pools.
Yeah. And then there was Cascade Lake.
Cascade, yeah, out of Snydersburg. Yeah,
and that was always a big deal.
Yeah, I rode my bicycle out to there. That was a long haul, but that was I did it not often, but I And you got the homemade ice cream in Snydersburg.
That's right.
Yeah.
Always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you went to Frocks Pool. The Red Cross took you by bus, and you learned how to swim.
Right.
And that was kind of a community thing to teach the kids how to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was great.
Best thing I ever learned.
Yeah.
Got to know how to swim.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep yourself.
But my dad, getting back to the dance bands, some of the funniest memories I have, and I think it was through the Lions Club. They used to do a thing. It was to generate money for charities and stuff. But they would put on these. They called them Our Gang comedies. And the prominent men in the business community would let their hair down and dress up in these awful, ungodly costumes. And they'd put on these little skits at the high school and on stage.
Right.
Well, they were better in television. I mean, some of them were just outrageous.
And the audience would just crack up.
Oh, lay on the floor.
These are the people who were all, when you normally see them, they're wearing their suits.
Yeah, straight-laced, the bank president and, whoever, and then he would be up there dressed as, some of them was, the one I can remember was almost like Tobacco Road or Little Abner's showcase, and they even had live chickens in the high school. On stage. I mean, they had goats. Now you can imagine. I mean, but for the farm animals.
Sure.
And they were dressed up like Little Abner hillbillies.
Yeah.
Letting
their hair down.
Letting their hair down.
And the crowd went wild.
Oh, I remember that. They were funny. Oh my God, they were funny.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know who wrote the skits. I don't, but they were hilarious. Yeah. I remember going. We wouldn't miss those. Of course, my dad played in the band. So,
Yeah.
I wish they'd do that. I don't think they would ever do that again, but that was some of the good stuff.
I bet. Yeah. So your dad played in Frocks band, and he'd do dances, I guess, at the VFWs.
Yeah, any halls around in the area.
Right. And also
Sykesville, Tawnytown.
Probably picnics as well.
Yeah.
Church picnics and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Now.
Not the train.
I hear it. Yeah. Now, did he? You say he played saxophone and clarinet.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you and your brother? Did either of you pick up an instrument?
I played trombone.
Did you?
But I didn't get through school with it.
Yeah.
And I think my brother he played drums or something.
Here comes the train.
Yep.
Well, let's take a look. That's about once a day, isn't it?
Yep. Whatever. Oh, that's a short one.
Yeah. It rattles the windows when it comes by.
Oh yeah.
Well, I tell you, that's a nice piece of history.
Now my mother was a school teacher.
Was she?
She taught at Reisterstown Junior. She was a home ec teacher.
Okay.
And she got her education at Western Maryland College.
Did she?
When me and my brother were about 8 or 9 years old, so she went back to school after having us kids.
Good for her.
Yeah. Thanks to her father, he kind of pushed her, and so she was a school teacher. And my dad worked on the railroad.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And they're both still alive. They're retired down in Chrisfield, Maryland, down on the Eastern Shore.
Are they really?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, when they come back up, I'm going to have to talk to them, get an interview.
Yeah. My dad will be 79. So I'll be 59, and he's going to be 79.
Yeah.
We're 20 years and 2 days apart.
No kidding. So
Yeah.
you celebrate.
Oh,
birthdays.
we know when each other's birthday is.
Celebrate birthdays in the same week.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, within a couple days. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So, what other stories can you tell me about growing up in Westminster? I know you've got a few.
Well, of course, I remember the big fires. I remember when the lumberyard caught on fire. That's when where the new where the fire department is now.
Mm-hmm.
That was lumberyard.
For the train station.
Well, or for the community, yeah.
Right.
But I remember that was a big fire.
I bet.
What else do I remember?
Now, when would that have taken place? Do you recall?
Not really. I know I was a kid.
Yeah. So probably
that was
late
big
50s.
news.
Late 50s,
Yeah. My first job. My first job was a grocery or a bag boy working for where Wheeler Chevrolet is, or Wheeler the car lot is.
Right.
That used to be
up on the hill.
Yeah, up on the hill. That was
Yeah.
an Acme and an A&P store. One store was Acme and the other one was A&P.
Now is that the store that was the museum?
No.
Okay,
I worked in where the dealership
where
is
the
now.
dealership itself is.
I think, if my
Yeah.
mind serves
Yeah.
me correctly, that the museum side, that was the Acme,
Mm-hmm.
and the A&P was where I worked at. I worked where the bag and groceries.
So we actually had two grocery stores right up on top of the hill, right across the street.
Right
from
across
each
the
other.
street from each other, and
Yeah.
they moved out there from Main Street.
Right. After the bypass came through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked with worked for Westminster Hardware,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember when that place burned up. That
Now-
was that broke my heart. That had the neatest old elevator.
No kidding.
It was an old freight elevator with the ropes, and an old one, and it burned up.
Now, where was this?
That Westminster Hardware was just about where, not George Street, the corner there where, like where Harry's is.
Mm-hmm.
There's like there used to be a little gas station there. It might be a barber shop or a little, I want to say Snowballs, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
anyway. That whole
Yeah,
that's where
right.
it was. There was a big fire there, so they put the new
Little strip in.
the road in there and made it with a little strip parking lot in there.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't that awful? I can't remember the name of that road.
That's
It goes out to
that's Bond Street.
okay.
Yeah.
And Bond Street going the other way is where
John.
Fox Sunnybrook Farm was.
Right.
It was off of Bond.
Yeah.
Keep on going down,
Yeah.
and it swings out and gets on
Sure.
26 or
Yeah.
27.
Right. It's on 27. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Bond Street. That's
Yeah.
where it was.
And so, what did you do after you worked at the hardware store?
I spent a couple years or a couple summers working at a church camp up above Caledonia, Camp Michaud.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in 68 and 69.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I turned 18, had to register for the draft for Vietnam.
Yeah.
And but luckily I didn't have to go, thank goodness. But I remember reporting to the draft board,
Sure.
which was in the basement of the old post office building there on Main Street, which is closed up now, but that's where the draft board was. And Mrs. Condon was the lady I had to talk to, and I went to school with her daughter, and they had Condon's Junkyard, which was out going towards Manchester.
Yeah.
So, I knew them. So.
Well, it was a community where everybody knew everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a year of college, University of Baltimore, downtown, and then I worked downtown at Continental Can, which they've closed up, and the building was falling down. But that was down on Biddle Street, downtown. And then I got a job at East Alco, and I stayed there 30 years and retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Married a girl I went to school with since third grade. We've known each other since third grade, and we have one daughter.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You married your childhood sweetheart.
Well, she didn't like me. I like to say she didn't like me then either. But I do remember third grade with her.
That's good.
Yeah.
Learning your multiplication tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been together, 35 years now.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Gary, you said earlier before the train came through that you played trombone.
Right.
Yeah. Did you
Slide trombone.
Did you play in the
No, just
school band?
Just school band. Yeah. And I surrendered the horn because it was just I was too busy back then. I wanted to run around in my car, get a car and run around like all the guys do.
Of course.
And the horn had to go.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I remember Westminster where it was very quiet till today. It's real busy. I mean, busy.
It's almost like a big city in the mornings and the
afternoons
when the cars come through.
Yeah, but I remember going up and watching the Colts practice up there and getting a hot dog and a cup of lemonade. And thought it was really something to see the Colts up there. And I remember as a kid how big those guys were.
They were big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I guess the Ravens still are big.
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to us. Okay, so we're talking about the old trolley system. Now, you were telling me, Gary, that when you were a youngster, that you used to catch the train in Westminster, I guess.
Westminster. Oh, yeah, I remember the passenger station in Westminster.
On Sundays, and right up to Thurmont to see your
grandparents, my mother's
on
parents.
your mom's side.
Right.
Okay, and you'd have chicken dinner.
Yep.
Okay, and you say that there was a trolley that ran from Thurmont, and you've ridden on that when you were really little.
Real little.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember the trolley in Thurmont.
Okay.
And like I say, it would you would get it at the Thurmont Railroad Station, Western Maryland Station. It would come in there, and then you could take the trolley over to Lewis. It would go to Lewistown to Catoctin Furnace.
Okay.
And then on into Frederick, and it would come into Frederick by Hood College. It would come in that end.
Okay. Yeah.
It would come in that way, and of course the Hood College back then was an all-female school.
Right.
It was a girls' school.
Yeah.
And of course they would run the use the trolley a lot.
Yeah.
But it would also go up, I think, up to it would definitely go to Hagerstown. I'm trying to think if it would go up to I don't know if the trolley went to Blue Ridge Summit or not. I don't think so, but it would go up to Braddock Heights.
Okay.
Because it was like an amusement park up there too.
No kidding.
Yeah, Braddock Heights. There was they had a fire too, but I took my daughter when she was a little girl to the roller skating ring up
at Braddock Heights.
At Braddock Heights.
And what amusements did they have up there?
Well, the merry-go-round and like I say, I might even had a roller coaster, but they had a bad fire and it's gone now. But yeah.
And a roller skating rink.
Yeah, definitely a roller skating ring. I took her up there, my daughter up there when she was a little girl, and we'd go roller skating.
And they probably had dances there and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the trolley system, I remember it.
Now, when you took your daughter, of course, this was after the trolley system was gone.
Oh yeah, that left in '53 or '54 or something like that. But my dad was the agent up Thurmont, and they wanted to do something special for the last run of the trolley.
Okay.
So the railroad had signal. They call them signal torpedoes. They would put their little explosive device, and it had a lead band. Then you would put them on top of the cap of the rail,
right on the track,
and the train would run over it, and it would explode, and it would tell them to stop.
Okay.
Well, my dad, there was always a big can of those things around on the railroads, and so my dad says, "Well, we'll put some of these torpedoes out, and when the trolley runs up, it'll go off like fireworks, and it'll make a big big show."
Okay.
Well, the trolley was too light. It was too light to set them off, so my dad had them take the wrappers off and just laid the charges on the thing.
Right.
And when the trolley came up, I remember this as a real little. It sounded like the war had broke out. I mean, it was
gunshots.
Boom, 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 boom. You know, and every the last run.
Cheered.
Right, the last run.
Now you said there was a photograph, and you're in the photograph.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. My mother is standing with a long skirt on, like a poodle skirt or something, and of course it must have been raining that day because she has an umbrella, and her father, which my other grandfather now, he's standing there, and I think you can just barely see a piece of my leg because I'm in between them standing there. But I remember that was a big deal in Thurmont.
And you were about 3 years old.
About 3 or 4 years old. Yeah.
And it was the last run of the trolley.
Yep.
Now, what powered the trolley? Was it electric?
Oh yeah, electric trolley.
Okay. Like a streetcar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can almost, if you go up Thurmont today, you can almost see the right of way of the trolley, and it goes right by the substation where they got their power from.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And if you go to Lewistown, the back road, you can almost see the way it, you can follow the telephone poles,
right.
The electric poles.
Now the tracks are all gone.
Oh, the tracks are all gone, but you can some parts of it you can see the old right of way.
So it went all the way to Frederick. It went to
it went to Hagerstown too.
And to Hagerstown.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the same thing, the farmers would put some of the trolleys. They did double duty, so there'd be freight on one end and passengers on the other.
Oh, sure.
So the milk and butter and eggs and
because it had a regular route. I mean, it ran every day at a certain time, and so people could count on it. And so the farmers would run their milk and their butter,
and that would take it over to the Western Maryland and put it on the trains to Baltimore or to the major hubs.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
A part of our history that's gone by the wayside, just like the streetcars.
Oh yeah.
All the towns, all the big cities had streetcars.
Yep.
And the streetcars were connected often to those trolley systems that would take them out into the hinterlands.
Yeah. Out into the country. Yeah.
You were saying that the riding club used to be, when they tore down the fences, you guys used to go out. This is when you were in elementary school? Grade school?
First and second grade. Early preschool and first and second, maybe third.
This is after they stopped doing the horses.
Right, after the horses left, they took the fences down.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's there right now, or still the lot, the alley that goes up along from North Colonial down to Manchester Avenue. There was the ball diamond. The neighborhood kids on Webster Street and North Colonial Avenue. That was a big deal to play ball. I mean, they played ball all the time. There was always a ball game going on.
So the kids would get together and play with softball or hardball.
Hardball.
Okay. You were playing baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say that softball wasn't played, but no, you could hit that hardball. You had open field. I mean, Yeah, it was something.
And so, what ages are we talking about? Would you say?
Well, it was all ages. I mean, the older kids wouldn't let the little kids play. You know that. So when the older kids weren't playing, the little kids would play.
Sure.
It was you always played ball.
Wow.
I mean, if your parents wanted to know where you were at, you were either riding your bicycle, getting in trouble, or you were playing ball. I mean, you played ball.
Yeah. That's fantastic, yeah.
And then, like I say, we moved to Green Street up on the hill, and I remember sneaking through the neighborhoods and crossing the street where Pritz's funeral home is. That was a private residence then.
Okay.
And going down over the hill where the farm museum is, but that was the almshouse or the poor farm or whatever. Okay. And my brother and I, we had our secret little fort down there, so we were always going down past them. We'd even on occasion would walk into and talk to the people on the porch of the old farmhouse.
At the old almshouse.
Yeah, at the old almshouse.
Yeah. What was that like? What was the almshouse like?
It was just, I remember it as a working farm, so to speak. I remember the people that were there were, to me, were extremely old. But I also remember the men would, there was a little graveyard out there.
Right.
And I remember they kept that little graveyard pristine. Now, I don't know how it is now, but there was always, that was manicured.
Yeah. Now this is the old house where the farm museum is now.
Yeah. It was, there's a little, I'm sure it's still there, a little graveyard. But I remember, I remember that, you know,
and I guess,
chickens, and you know, it was like a working farm.
A working farm. And I guess the idea was that it was for people who had gotten old. You know, we didn't have Carroll Lutheran villages.
Yeah, there was.
Then.
And if you didn't have the money for nursing or anything like that, or
right, if you didn't have family and you were destitute, let's say, that it was a place to go and you could be taken care of.
That's right.
You would do as much as you could to keep up the to work. Contribute back. Yeah. Sure.
But like I say, I was right 9 or 10, something like that.
Okay.
Like I say, Carroll County Hospital wasn't there.
Right.
I remember I had the pleasure of being one of the first to go to the emergency room at the Carroll County Hospital.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was up. The neighbors, us guys, were playing war, and I managed to trip in some honeysuckle and landed on a stake and put 56 stitches in my leg.
No kidding.
And
wow.
I remember going out to the new hospital, and they were still working on it. And the doctor's name, my family doctor's name was Dr. Chepko, Julius Chepko, and he proceeded to sew my leg back up. I remember that.
And you got a tetanus shot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that was a big deal.
Yeah. And you probably still got a pretty scar from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
That's
right on my knee.
A lot of stitches.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. That was. But I remember going to the Carroll County General as it was a brand new hospital, still being built.
Now you were telling me about the poor side of town. Another section of town that had a different name. It was referred to as a different.
Well, it was out by the elementary school. Was off of 140. Was a place we called it Kraustown. The kids at elementary school called it Krauttown, but I believe it was Kraustown.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure why that little community was there, but it's gone. I mean, but it was the old clapboard houses.
Okay.
Pretty much run down.
Yeah.
I
Now,
remember.
Where exactly was it located?
Right off of Court Street, as you would come up out of town, going up to 140.
Okay.
It was located right off of Court Street, right before you would get to 140.
Is that little road now where the Hess gas station is and the?
No.
No.
No. You're over too far.
Over too far. Off of Court Street.
Yeah, it was just like a one lane.
Okay.
It might have been 6 old homes in there or something. It was you could almost like a remnants of something.
Right.
I don't know if it was a
like a little settlement there.
Yeah, I don't know if that was for tenant farms, or maybe they work for Shrivers Canning.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
five or six houses, clapboard houses, that were set off from the regular town on their own little road.
Yep. And they were pretty much, we called it was Kraustown. You know.
That's a part of history that's probably completely forgotten.
Well.
Yeah.
It's been, and then like I say, when they developed that in, that got bulldozed or tore down.
Those old houses down and just kept developing.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I always like to conclude these interviews with 2 questions. First one is, you've been around for a good long while. You've grown up in Carroll County, grown up in Westminster, and you've seen the county change. What are the most profound changes that you've seen in Carroll County?
Oh, well, the classic answers is the traffic, the people. I mean, which the growth.
Right.
not that in a bad, a good thing, but that is really that and the crime. I mean, comes with all your major hubs. Everything comes. But that I really miss. I mean, I remember. You never locked your house.
Right.
My parents never locked their house.
Yeah.
I could even do one better than that. I remember the telephone before before the rotary dial was on there. You had to pick up in the operator.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, 848 was ~8.
No kidding.
That was. I used to remember those exchanges. But you'd pick the receiver up, and the operator would say, "Number, please."
You remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. And so you'd give her the number, and she'd make the connection.
Yeah, and it was
for you.
~8. You wouldn't say 848. You'd say ~8, and there was just different.
Yeah.
Now what tilde? I don't know what that meant. But I do remember that.
Did you all have a party line?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so you shared the phone with other people because we just didn't have that many people, and we didn't have that many lines then.
Yeah. Now the other extreme on that is my cousins that live over in Frederick County in Unionville. They lived on a dairy farm. Okay. And they were on a party line, but they answered their phone by the amount of rings.
No kidding.
Which I don't remember in Westminster. Your phone would ring and you picked it up, but their party line, it might their phone number or phone might be 3 short rings and a long. I mean, so everybody would stop and count the rings.
Yeah. And if it was that signal,
if it was Thursday, picked it up.
Yeah. Wow.
Now I do remember that because it was like what?
Yeah.
Huh?
Very interesting. Yeah.
So I do remember that.
And there's been a lot of growth, but when you were a youngster, a lot of agriculture in Carroll County, a lot of industry in Carroll County. It seems like we've tried to hang on to the agricultural flavor in the community to a certain point, as much as we can. And
true.
Yeah.
True. But a lot of it's being developed. I mean, your bypass has become the main artery, so they build another bypass, and it's almost like layers of a tree or the rings of a tree. They just create another avenue to develop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a final question, Gary.
All right.
You grew up in the 50s and the 60s. You and I kind of came of age about the same time. In the late 60s, early 70s, you were starting to get out on your own. You got your car, you got started, and you started doing your thing. You've been through a lot in your lifetime. If you were going to give some advice to somebody today that was reaching that same age, getting ready to go out on their own, graduating from high school or college and getting ready to start out on their own, what advice would you give them?
Education. Education or a skill. I believe I was lucky. I jumped right into the workforce and worked hard all my life. I mean, but I think nowadays with the competition and as many people it is, you have to have a skill, or you definitely have to have your education. I mean, that's everybody says that, but I sound like my dad.
Yeah.
That's what he said, and it's true.
And he was right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything.
You have to have some skills.
Yeah.
There's too many out there that don't, and if you want to be happy in your life, you have to have it. Absolutely. And I can't. You only go around once, and I don't want to go around once and not be happy. You try to be happy.
Right.
I mean, that's my philosophy.
Well, there's great advice right there. Be happy.
Well, try to be. Yeah. I mean, and you got to work for everything you want.
Yes, sir.
I mean, everything I have was basically from East Alco in Buggestown because I worked there. I mean, my daughter went to college. I mean, you have to. Yeah. In today's environment, you have to.
Yeah. Because it's harder today than it used to be.
Yeah.
When I graduated from high school and I could get a job and I could support myself, you can't do that today.
No.
It's a lot tougher.
If you work harder doing it the easy way.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I think about it. I mean.
Well, Gary, I want to thank you so much for taking the time this morning to speak to us. I really do appreciate you doing this. Your stories are very interesting, and I want to wish you a very happy day.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I used to ride trains all the time. The guys knew me. All I had to do was put my thumb out.
And they'd stop for you?
Well, they'd slow down.
Yeah, and you jump on.
Yeah.
Against the law.
Can't do that today.
Yeah.